Charge Spread Beam is one of the strongest PvP attacks, and today I will show you why it's worth building around it. Hello everyone, my name is Deus, and today I think it's time to talk about the Charge Spread Beam Teostra, which is one of the strongest fire build you can honestly make. You could slap that on a different monster, but Teostra is one of the best for the job, and I will explain a bit the thought process behind building this monster and what I was going for. On the 24th of July, the Monster Hunter Stories Guild Discord server organized 2 tournaments, one on PC and one on Switch. I ended up winning the PC tournament, and this monster right here was part of my team of 3. And today I want to make a build video centered around that. The idea behind the build is to make Charge Spread Beam work, and that's a move that you get from Black Gravios. Now if you read the description, it states that it ignores defense, and what I think it means is that during the damage calculation, it doesn't take into account your defense stat. And I'm thinking this because I would be dealing very consistent damage to both the rider and the monster, regardless of what monster was on the field. That's pretty much the game plan. Now let's talk about the actual genes. This Teostra only has 2 active skills that it can go for, outside of the regular power, tech, and speed moves. It's gonna be either Valiant Flare or Charge Spread Beam. And the idea was to narrow down the amount of things it can do so that it more often than not does what I want it to do, which is using the 2 attacks I have there in particular. Outside of that, all the other remaining bingo slots are filled with stuff to give it more bulk, to help it survive, to make sure that I can pull off the Charge Spread Beam, and we will go into that right now. Quick disclaimer, if you're trying to make this build, please max out Anti-Sleep. I wasn't able to do so before the tournament because I couldn't find the gene. I was just getting unlucky. But if you're making this build, definitely max out that skill. Next, I have something to say regarding the gene placement. Yes, if you tweak some of the things around, you can get a non-elemental bingo and also a tech bingo. Non-elemental doesn't make any sense on Teostra, so I would not do that. And the tech bingo is nice to have, but it didn't end up changing anything because my Teostra doesn't really have any tech moves, so it only works if you go for a tech move by itself, which doesn't happen most of the time. Still, it's nice to optimize this, so at the very least I would reorganize the tech move so that you get a tech bingo out of it. But truly in the end, it doesn't matter that much. Alright, back to the video. For the Charge Spread Beam strat to work, I needed my Teostra to be tankier, and for that I went for 2 specific skills. Divine Blessing XL and Self Heal XL. Having these 2 meant that I would be able to reduce the damage I can take with Divine Blessing, and also recover HP at the end of each turn thanks to Self Heal. And that made my Teostra a lot harder to kill for anyone. My next goal was to protect my Teostra from status effects. As you may already know, the status seals are extremely disruptive in PvP and can easily make you lose a turn. By having these skills in my build, I was able to prevent my opponent from having easy ways to stop my charge beam from happening. And this is why you will see these 4 specific anti-skills in my build. I have Anti-Skill Seal, Anti-Blind, Anti-Paralysis, and Anti-Sleep, for that very reason. And our last gene is Harmony XL, aka Kinship Cost Down. At +2 it gives you 20% Kinship cost reduction, and that's huge for our 2 skills. Normally, Valiant Flare is going to cost you 19 Kinship points, and Charge Spread Beam will cost 36. Harmony XL brings the cost to 15 for Valiant Flare, and 28 for Charge Spread Beam. And that's huge for PvP. In PvP, you and your opponent start with 15 Kinship. Valiant Flare costing 15 Kinship means that my monster can go for it on turn 1, or I can order it to do so. The best outcome would be for the monster to use it on its own, because it doesn't cost any Kinship if they select the move themselves. What I typically do on turn 1 is to pet my monster to give it some additional Kinship. Petting gives 15 Kinship points, and if you add that to the 15 we start with, it brings the number to 30. Charge Spread Beam costs 28 Kinship points with Harmony XL, and that means that I can go for it as soon as the second turn of the fight, if I want to. And that's early enough to put a ton of pressure on your opponent because they may not have the resources ready yet to prepare for that. Now, when it comes to the rider weapons, I like to have at least 1 gun lance when I'm playing Charge Spread Beam, and that's because of Protect. Protect is a move that works similarly to Follow Me in Pokemon. It's going to draw in an attack from the opposing monster on you. Keep in mind that Protect doesn't work on AoEs, and it doesn't redirect the attack of the rider. However, it's extremely strong because Typically, when people see you using Charge Spread Beam, they will try to double target that Teostra. Being able to prevent the monster from dealing any damage to the Teostra makes the job so much easier to do, and that's something that I definitely recommend that you mess with. On top of that, the gun lance is a very good weapon in PvP because it has ways to reduce the damage you take, get a ton of kinship if you call the head-to-head right, or also seal your opponent's abilities. Valiant Flare is one of the only 2 moves I have on this Teostra, and that's for a very good reason. It's to buff the amount of fire damage I'll be dealing through the roof. I'll give you an example. Without the buff, my Teostra would be eating for 390 damage on both the rider and the monster. However, if I fully buff myself with Valiant Flare, the charge beam damage goes up to 507. 507. That is insane. Nothing survives that unless they have Counterplay to deal with charge beam, and that's exactly why I have this buffing move on my Teostra. Speaking of Counterplay, I will not talk about how to deal with Charge Spread Beam. Charge Spread Beam is very strong, but it doesn't mean that there are no counterplays. The 2 big ways to deal with Charge Spread Beam are guarding and evading. You can guard by using the guard skill on your SNS, gun lance, greatsword, and also on your monster if you have the perfect guard gene, which comes from Emerald Kongalala. As for evading, you can do that if you have White Shadow on your monster, which is a skill that you get from Silverwind Nagakruga, and also with your rider by using a weapon with absolute evasion. With these 2 strats, you're able to reduce the amount of damage you take from Charge Spread Beam, or avoid it completely by using evasion. Knowing this, as a Charge Spread Beam player, you will want to have 2 monsters in the back to help with these bad matchups. Monsters that are able to apply a ton of pressure without needing Charge Spread Beam. For example, my tournament winning team had a Water Palamute and a Kushala. The Water Palamute was there to help with other Teostras and Bloodbaths, while also applying a ton of pressure with moves like Noxious Spit. The Kushala was mainly there to be a bulky ice monster with ways to inflict Skill Seal on my opponent. Skill Seal would make it harder for the opponent to deal with my Charge Spread Beam, which is what I was going for. And that's pretty much the gist of it. If you want to do more PvP co-op in Monster Hunter Stories too, I recommend that you join the Monster Hunter Stories Guild Discord server. You can find the link to that Discord in my description below. But that's gonna be it for me. Thank you guys for watching the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!
Love, don't try to hide it. Find it deep inside and try to hide it. If there's a way, I wanna know which way to quit your games and now that you deny it.